they've really not looked back at any of these games.
Yeah, I mean, we saw all the way from the challenger scene. There wasn't really a team that had came into the LCS with higher expectations.
Yeah.
Even when Cloud9 qualified, people were like, all right, they're going to be pretty good. A lot of people from LMQ were putting them near the top of the standings. Many of the LCS teams, including like COG, were saying, oh yeah, 4th best. And that's where most of us put them as well, because we weren't really sure how they're going to perform. We're still not entirely sure how they're going to perform, because the game against COG was very close, and they've kind of beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, but they're still doing it in pretty impressive fashion. Yeah,
they're 3-0. They're going to end the day in first place. They've got a chance at a 4-0 Super Week. The big tests are how they do against the rest of the top 3, right? CLG with the new roster was a close test for them. They've still got TSM, Cloud9 ahead of them in the next couple of weeks or so. So that's going to be fun to watch. Now, LMQ, though, I think they come in. They're one of only 3 undisturbed rosters in the LCS right now. And they look really good as a group. What I really like is the fact that they are not shy to go for fights, and that they're very confident in knowing what they can get away with. The exception of like Vasily going into what was a 1v2, like anytime Ackerman dives in, he actually wins the fight. I've never seen him dive into the wrong battle. It's really impressive.
Especially when he was behind yesterday in their game against COG. He was doing the same thing. We were talking about Ackerman, how he wasn't necessarily terroring the challenger scene in the top lane.
No.
And he's not, it doesn't seem like he's a player that really cares too much about destroying the other person in lane. He'll get his farm down, and then he's all about timing and jumping into the right times. Every time he was using Dragon's Descent in that last game against Complexity, he was getting a kill.
Yeah, he plays his lane to get ahead, because of course you're trying to win, but like you're right, aside from flashing in and getting some damage to Westrise, trading summoner spells, all he's doing in Shyvana is pushing, dealing damage to the hurt when he can, but just being ready to make moves, right? When he canceled Westerice's TP on Malphite and then got to teleport to the bottom lane later himself, that was awesome. In fact, our first replay is a big bottom lane fight that Ackerman gets the TP, and if you can pull that up on your screen, this is the one that really puts LMQ far ahead here.
Yeah, the timing on this was what was right about it. Let's just get into the clip and roll it right away, because LMQ had already made that one mistake in the bottom lane, and they made a bit of another one there. More actually flashed before No Name could get in. And that almost was a trigger for Complexity to get really aggressive, but the teleport was also coming in from behind them, which basically screwed Complexity over. That was the timing of the teleport by Ackerman. And at this point, it's just Complexity baiting themselves. They overestimated the damage of a level 8 Kassadin. Kassadin really needs until the end of the game to start doing damage now after the current nerfs. And going in that early just gave Ackerman that triple kill, and he never looked back.
Yeah, he thought he could one-shot Vasily. Put the Ignite down, did everything. He actually probably did roam out of mid before Shadowway shouted. Like Straka was still mid at that time. Like was killing minions. I watched the minimap there. But yeah, even if Vasily died, he was out of the fight regardless. Like even with him staying alive, he pieced away. It was Ackerman at that point 2v3ing with more, and it was double Doran's Blade, Bilgewater Cutlass, and then just like a Negatron Cloak to not die. And it's like, yeah, Ackerman just does that much damage.
It really seems like it. And my questions for LMQ are, is their aggressive tendencies going to come back to haunt them? Because they've made mistakes in all of these games. Moore made a bunch of mechanical mistakes in lane. If we're being fair, I don't know what I've done when he hooked into that minion and ended up giving up first blood.
Yeah.
And even Ackerman, he fell behind against the COG game, but they're coming together as a team. I want to see them against the likes of Cloud9. Once they get 4-0, and now the expectations are really on. Because at this point, if they're a team as good as LMQ, especially with Godlike, a guy who was on Royal Club, who finished second in the World Finals, they've already played a whole split together. They're actually more stable roster than all the other teams in the league. Coming in and beating up on a team recently joining the LCS, they feel like they can do that. I want to see them against Cloud9.
Yeah, and so also I want to kind of touch on the story. We talked about it a bit yesterday. Is LMQ still in play style, a Chinese team and American team?
Right.
And the fact that they're diving in, and again, their players all came from China proper, like, okay, yes, they've got some of that play style there. And the fact that they're doing these confident dives for fights that they know are going to work is a very Chinese style. And when we saw, for example, OMG versus SKT at All-Star about 2 weeks ago, SKT had better ward control and got to capitalize on those dives. They got to say, well, we know something you don't. You think you're going 4v3. It's actually 4v5, and they turn it back around. And we saw that glimpses of that. Like Vasily, again, going for the 1v1 on Robert X. Lee, but surprise, Prolly's actually there and turns the fight around. Like, these are the things that you can prey on. And we've heard some of the other commentators talk about, like, if you're very aggressive, you become predictably aggressive, and you can play around on those things. So as this league matures, even against teams like Complexity, they're having a rough start. I think all these guys will learn and play against that playstyle a bit better.
I think so, and I think they're kind of all going to turn into closer to the same playstyles as well.
Yeah.
Also, the way the game is going right now, even though we didn't see the lane swaps in this game in particular, it's a little bit more carry focused.
True.
As we've seen, the mid laners and the AD carries are really head and shoulders above other people as far as CS is concerned. And Vasily and Xiao are two of the best in position as far as LMQ is built. Ackerman as well, not necessarily needing to destroy lane, but knowing what to do in team fights. They're really well suited for the way the game is trending right now, which could mean a really great amount of early season success. Unless the game changes later on, then we'll have to see how they adapt.
Exactly. Chinese teams are all like really, really good at shoving their lanes out and just roaming arbitrarily, or seemingly arbitrarily, at times your opponents don't expect, and getting kills out there. Speaking of, moving around and making roams, we're going to see some of that, I think, with the 2v0 lanes, that we'll see more rotations around the map. But we have a second replay we want to show for you guys. It's a team fight about 27 minutes in. LMQ go for this one. And this is, again, it's, okay, they're up 12K at this point, so they know they're going to win some fights. But just the fact that they're going to go in confidently and dive all the time and just get good fights out of it.
Yeah, and as far as complexity is concerned, too, they have this never say die attitude. And they're honestly forcing a little bit. When they're down in the game, this is almost a signal of a larger problem where they're always trying to make plays regardless of the situation in the game. And let's just roll this clip to kind of see why. They're getting zoned out by 2 people, and it's a 2v3. When you know the other team has 5, you don't actually have a reason to look out this far in the Baron pit. This is a Baron you should give up under almost every circumstance. Because they didn't, LMQ chased through. They got the poison tick as to finish off Broken Shard. There's a Rylai's Crystal Scepter on Soraka. There was nothing Complexity could have realistically done there. LMQ knew that they could put up a defensive line. They could easily take Baron with 3, and they just executed. That was simple as that.
Yeah, exactly. And you think about just the game we saw earlier today, Curse versus TSM. TSM commanding lead early on, 8,000 goldish. Ward control set up Baron, and Curse is patient, look for hooks, eventually they find it, get back in with some fight. You can play a little bit of a slower game from behind, find that opening, and, look for the Malphite pick. Look for the arbitrary get us around on the bot lane when someone's farming alone, and, push that around, not dive into the front lines.
I agree. And Complexity has a rough first week as well.
True.
Right? The teams that they're playing against are very strong right now, and they admittedly came into this not saying they're going to be number 1 all the time. They know they're going to take some lumps at the start of the LCS, as honestly they will. A lot of these teams are coming in with much more experience than them. LMQ, even though they were a challenger team during the same time as Complexity Black, are a more experienced team, I'd have to say, at least on big stages. And Complexity Black, they're not Complexity Black anymore. I keep calling them that because that's what they were in the challenger scene. They just need to kind of let the game come to them and rely on their mechanical play because they're really good in lane.
Yes, they are. They got slightly outmatched here, but generally speaking, especially that bottom lane, we talked about that. Robert Ixley and Bubba Dub, I think, is a place that they could get a lot of strength from. We'll see if it can go throughout the rest of the season. They've got 26 more games to go.
Plenty.
Plenty. It's enough to get stuff going on. We've got to take a quick break. When we come back, Dignitas will take to the Rift against Evil Geniuses. But first, every week we get to see all the fans who flock to the studio.